you lead us in a prayer?
I sure will. Lord, we just thank you for today. We thank you that you had brought us together to just sit through this, and we ask for your wisdom in any decisions or anything that needs to be made, and we just honor you. We want you here with us and bless us and take care of us and watch over us, and we just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Quinn, you lead us in a pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seated. Mr. Secretary, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barry Briley.
Present.
Mr. Roger Smith.
Present.
Mr. Bruce Quinn.
Present.
Mr. Brian Lynch.
Present.
Mr. Jim Monahan. Mr. Michael Williams.
Present.
John Janone. Wally Gilliam.
All right, we do have a quorum, but we're not voting tonight, so has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes from the last meeting? I hear a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion.
Second? All right. All those in favor? We approve those. All right, I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're good to go. Nobody's here from the public to speak. I have nothing new to report. Let's move on to all business, and that'd be Marshall Wright.
All right, Chairman Briley, if y'all recall, we started reviewing the adopted building codes from 2021 building codes, and we got up to slide number 13. There's a lot here, guys, and we won't even get through it all tonight, so we're gonna have to break it down in at least 3 parts. Tonight we'll do the second part, and next time we meet, maybe we do the third part, and maybe even have to go 4 parts. But once we get through with that, I've asked Terry to speak just a few minutes on the adequate facility tax application and the process, how people go about applying for their adequate facility tax, and what Terry and other inspectors and plan reviewers look at when they're calculating the fees, and so he'll speak on that a little bit. So anyway, I want to do just a quick review, kind of refresh everybody's memory from slide 1 through 13, and then we'll take off on 14. The codes were adopted, the 2021 codes was adopted last year, and the background, we're going to skip through all that. It talks about the history of the ICC codes and how they come into being. Let's think sensitive. Let's see, 3. How we became an exempt building codes department from the state fire marshal's office, giving us a lot of leeway and autonomy, where we don't have to be micromanaged by state fire marshal. He pretty much gives us the authority to do what we need to do, and they'll come in every 4 or 5 years, make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Updated building codes. To remain an exempt jurisdiction, we have to stay within the previously adopted published codes within 7 years. That's the reason we had to go to the 21s from 2015 to 2021s. And we talked about a refund policy last time we met, so we're just going to skip through right. And also temporary occupancy, slide 6, we talked about that, the changes we did. Electrical, touched a little bit about that. Also, we're going to talk about that probably more on part 3, some of the electrical changes. International Phone Limit Code, where it says IBC, we're talking about commercial, not residential, okay? And I'm just go back to the IBC electrical. When it says IBC, it's talking about commercial. IBC electrical, no changes. IBC, commercial, no changes. IMC, mechanical, commercial, no changes. And when I say no changes, I'm talking about in-house no changes. There's nothing that our codes department changed. There's a lot of changes on a national level from going from one side to the other. But we're talking about what the county done, so this would be fit kind of what the county does and what the county needs. Same thing with the International Fuel Gas Code, no changes, no amendments. And 13, this is where we'll kick it off again tonight, is the IRC. Whenever you see IRC, it's International Residential Code. Everything we're gonna be talking about tonight is residential. Adopt with the following amendments. The first thing we hit on was work exempt from permits. This is original text talking about fences. In the original IRC, it says that in item number 2, it gives a list of 10 things that are exempt from permits. This is item number 2 out of the 10 that you don't need a permit for. And it says fence is not over 7 foot high. Well, what we made in the change, and I'm gonna read it, but it says fence is not over 8 feet high. We changed from 7 to 8 because the zoning resolution said 8, and we wanted to complement what they were saying, and we didn't want to be contradicted, so we made that change. Look how sensitive this stuff is. Maybe if I do this, I think I
Hit an arrow down.
Yeah, that would be better, yeah. Okay, here we go. The second change we done in the International Residential Code was also exemption. And it was, permits shall not be required for the following. Fences was number 2, this section is number 3, and talks about retaining walls. And, it talks about any retaining wall over 4 foot, under 4 foot, did not need a permit. Well, we changed that and we just kicked it over to the county engineer, let him kind of deal with it. So you'll see the changes at the bottom. It talks about the Sumner County engineer. We thought it was a good idea, along with the county engineer, to just let them review retaining walls. We'll permit them, but the Sumner County engineer will kind of have oversight on them. Another item that was exempt from permits we amended, I'm just gonna read this. Section R105.2, work exempt for permits. Exemptions from requirements of this code shall not be deemed to grant authority, authorization for any work to be done in any manner in violation of the provisions of this code or any other law or ordinance of the jurisdiction. Permits shall not be required for the following. This is HVAC. The code requires that HVACs need to be permitted, but what we did, we didn't change in the original language in the code. We amended it by adding to it. And what we done is added replacement of any minor parts that do not alter approval or equipment or make such equipment unsafe, HVACs or other mechanical system changeouts whenever there is no change in the utility provider or type of fuel, HVAC or other mechanical systems with no reconfiguration or extensions of the existing fuel. In other words, we're not going out there, we're not permitting and inspecting every time somebody changes out an HVAC system. We don't have the staff, and that's one reason. But what we do require now, if they're changing fuel, if they're going like from electric to gas HVACs, or they're reconfiguring the pipe or something, then they need to come in and get a permit. submittal documents. The original text, it talks about that, you can have, a digital format if the local jurisdiction allows it. And this has been a problem for us for a while, is that, people will come in with basically a piece of paper in freehand, something that's not legible, or it's so small you can't even, read it with a, magnifying glass. So we made some changes on this. This has to be a minimum of 11 by 14-inch paper as part of the application documents, the drawing itself, or it can be CAD on that size paper. If it's a house, if it's a storage building or accessory structure, then we still allow just hand drafted construction drawings on it. You can just freehand something. But if it's a house, it has to be legible and give us enough detail to help make an informed decision on what is being permitted. If anybody got any questions, they can just jump in any time. Terry, you got anything you want to share on this?
Yeah, this is mostly around house plans. You know, you've got to, when you do a plan review, you need to know what kind of windows are in certain rooms, things like that, egress from a basement. And they need to be detailed enough to where we're not having problems later on in the process, like when we go out there for a framing inspection and they're gonna and they've already maybe started bricking the house, and they've got to make a pretty substantial change to a window or something like that. We need to be able to review that plan, and it'd be a good enough plan so we're not having to address something later on.
And your main issue would be egress and window sizes and stuff of that.
Window sizes in sleeping rooms, bonus rooms, anything over 400 square feet in a basement needs egress to the outdoors, stairways, vertical rise on stairways, things like that. It's things that would really impact later on after the framers were done.
Can I throw something out about, I know we're on residential, but this is an example of a commercial building. They changed some rooftop units out in Hendersonville, and they wanted an engineer to say the steel was strong enough to handle the new load of the same tonnage of the unit, which the new units were lighter. So I mean, it was no problem getting it, but they had to get an engineer's letter and all kinds of stuff just to prove that they wouldn't add a weight load more than what that building was built for from the original change out.
Yeah.
And on any 99% of your commercial change outs, your electric and gas are not long enough, or it's in the wrong place because they do curb adapters. And when they do curb adapters, it can be hodgepodge. I've done a couple, and I had to go back underneath the set boxes and come back up. But yeah, it gets hairy on the commercial side of it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it just kind of brings me to something, and I'm curious, because obviously, in our building codes department here, we don't have a really large staff. However, we do have an unprecedented amount of growth. So I'm wondering, do you guys keep any sort of statistical data, such as the rejection rate, anything that y'all got going on? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, we document all that, but I don't know if we have done a study on the percentage.
Not on the rework.
I just wondered if, I would
That
imagine.
would be hard to pull out the rework part of it. We do a good job of separating out how many we do and what they are and all that.
Well, being in the real estate industry, I know from representing many new construction buyers that there's always issues, and I just wonder what kind of quality homes in our county here are we seeing? I mean, are we staffed up well enough? Are we keeping a good enough eye on this to know that what's out here is?
I can answer that. They need more help.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that runs in my mind, didn't mean to be off topic.
No, we appreciate the questions and stuff. Knock on wood, that since we've been here, or 10 years I've been here in the staff, we've never been named in a lawsuit or anything. So that's been very fortunate. Thank you, dear Lord, for that.
Yeah, you shouldn't have said it, though.
He knocked on wood.
But anyway, you're talking about dead loads. you know, the HVAC system and stuff, a lot of that, especially commercial, has to be engineered and calculated for the load. I mean, even in residential, if somebody was to come in and cut 3 or 4 ceiling joists out of the first floor, or notch them, and you got a bathroom above it, and you got a big tub full of water, you know, people don't think about that. You know, it's not just a carpet in there, you know, it could be a pretty heavy dead
I
load.
think about the cassettes, you know, on the mini splits, because you gotta, they're not gonna fit between 16 inches, 14, half inch.
So what we do anytime that we're not sure, we tell them to get an engineer letter
Yeah.
on it. So. Good, Terry?
Yes, sir.
All right. Slide number 19. The original says that the final inspection, there he is.
Sorry.
All right, Jim.
Bring the banner?
This is one I think y'all might find a little bit interesting. It talks about the final inspection and the certificate of occupancy. It says final inspection shall be made after the permitting work is completed prior to occupancy. That's all it says about issuing a CO. And the changes we made is, we added to that, and I'm gonna go ahead and read it. Final inspection shall also include grading and sodding of grading, seeding and straw. A minimum distance of 50 foot around the dwelling shall be graded and sodded or graded, seeded and straw. Well, there was never any kind of definition in there what a yard is. You know, somebody's got a yard in a pasture and then the neighbors won't know how come their yard's not getting graded, seeded, straw. Well, we put a definition in there. It must be 50 foot out or a perimeter around the house.
Must grade them with backhoes or something, because
Yeah.
half of them are grading them with discs, I'm sure.
In the public, reads, dwellings with property lines nearer than 50 feet shall cease the grading and sodding and grading, seeding and straw at the property line. Grading shall be so designed to remove stormwater away from the foundation without discharging on neighboring property. Grading and sodding or grading, seeding and straw shall be completed and inspected prior to the certificate of occupancy being issued. Issuing a temporary certificate of occupancy may be considered prior to the grading and sodding or grading, seeding and straw whenever, in the opinion of the building inspector, inclement weather would make this unreasonable. In the case of inclement weather, a letter of request for a temporary certificate of occupancy must be submitted between the owner and contractor, giving a timeline of who is responsible for completing the work. All trip hazards and other life safety concerns must be mitigated before a temporary certificate of completion can be issued. So they'll have to submit a letter with the contractor and the owner agreeing who's going to complete the work, because once the certificate of occupancy is issued and then the contractor paid in full and this hasn't been done yet, it can be problematic. Who's going to go back after the ground dries to complete the work? So,
Or thaws.
oh, thaws, yeah. So that's kind of why we put that in there. Fire sprinklers. ICC put it in, we took it out. We did it in 2015 also. And state fire marshals said you can do that. So they'll allow any local jurisdiction that want to take the fire sprinklers out to do it. We did it in 2015, we did it in 2021. One of the reasons is that it's next to impossible to get water pressure up in the hills, Westmoreland and Portland. It's just not practical. So we took it out. Same thing, some more language about automatic sprinkler systems in residential. 1 or 2 families, took it out. Some more. Deleted it out of the original language.
And that's the consensus on multiple jurisdictions, really, especially in this part of the country. And the hills and hollows we have, and the weather we have, it's pretty widespread that that's getting taken out, lots of places.
I think over like in Ashland City, every new build over there last year, they all had fire suppression systems in
They're
them.
underwater anyways.
Yeah. But it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I don't recall which city it was around here, but when we had it real hard freeze, I think it was last year, a lot of residential fire sprinklers, they were required in that city. They froze, and when they thawed, it was a disaster. Several homes was flooded.
Major damage.
You remember what city that was?
I do not,
It's
but I saw it on the
probably
news.
one of those cities.
Classroom last year.
So if
Yeah,
somebody,
Merrill High.
if somebody did
My
put a
wife's-
system in
She
their
teaches
house,
first grade at Merrill High.
crazy enough
And
to
that
do it,
freeze
whatever,
just
would
flooded out her
y'all-
room.
is that something that somebody would design and submit to y'all? Would y'all
Somebody
review it?
waterfall.
Would it go to the fire marshal?
Does it
Or
need
would you just
inspection?
say, we're not even inspecting it, we don't care what you do? I mean, I'm asking. what-
At
how
this
would you-
point, being that we've taken it out, if they wanted to, go ahead and install a fire sprinkler system, we would probably say get a third-party, independent, fire safety inspector to do inspection on it and submit a report to us.
So that would be a part of the CO
Yeah.
If they choose to do it.
if they chose to do it, but it's not a mandatory thing? Okay.
Hey, this might be jumping the gun, but since we're talking about fire and all that kind of good stuff, where does the county sit on smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors? I know certain counties out there say, you know, it's not required in homes. What is Sumner County? Where do we sit
Oh,
on
it's
that?
definitely required in homes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I'd be surprised if there's any jurisdiction that pulls that out. I don't think they would be allowed to pull it out. I don't think the state fire marshal would allow it.
Okay.
On top of that, they've even got to be interlocked.
Yeah.
So when one
Yeah.
goes off, the whole house goes off, and it's got to have secondary power.
But, so we require the smoke detectors, but do we require carbon monoxide?
In certain places.
Yeah.
And
If you have a
Within
gas-fired appliance,
Okay.
ventless fireplace,
Yes.
things like that, you definitely want.
Yes.
Well, I know you might
carbon
want
monoxide.
it, but in my business, I'm an appraiser, okay? And so certain lenders might come back and say, well, please tell us if your local community where this house is at requires carbon monoxide inside it.
Yeah,
I was
we
like, well,
get
where
them
does Sumner
calls all
County
the
sit?
time from realtors, won't know if ice and water shields required, or drip edge is required, or
Mm-hmm.
smoke detectors, all that stuff, so.
They're going
And that's
real-
usually covered under the electrical inspector.
mhm.
And of course,
Yeah.
y'all look
Yeah,
as
it'd
well.
be dual jurisdiction that, it'd be addressed in the, electrical codes and also the building codes too, plumbing codes, all that.
Marshall, I arrived late, so it might be a stupid question, but have we addressed radon detectors at all?
No, sir,
No?
no.
Is that part of anything we're gonna do?
It's not in the code.
No?
Talk about an inexact science.
Don't do that, that's
Yeah.
a great revenue stream for me, man.
Yeah, don't, y'all killing versus
Radon
business.
vent.
What's that?
Most of your new homes, most all of them have a radon vent
Okay,
where it goes across the crawl space floor
uh-huh.
and tees up it through the wall.
What if there's no, crawl space? What if it's like the new
Like a
construction?
slab.
They put them in, yeah. They'll
Yeah, it's
run
in
them
there,
out
on
of
the
slab, yeah.
construction anyway? Okay, well, that's good to know.
You run into that, Bruce, a lot?
What I run
Right on.
into is they don't know what they're doing when they install them.
Yeah.
They're throwing these pipes down on top of the gravel. They got openings in all the stinking vapor barrier, and it's like, it's supposed to be overlapped, taped up the sides of the foundation, over the columns and everything, and they're just throwing a pipe down there, throwing a radon sticker on it and going,
And
Yeah,
Bruce,
you-
and Bruce loves to come out and set up his little machine and charge those people, my
right.
people.
that's right.
I've seen the radon test taking place, you know, when I do a file or something like that, don't go in there.
Yeah.
They're testing, but as far as requiring a certain kind
Yeah.
of radon vent,
I mean, we tell people, it's like, you can go in and out of the structure, just don't move out your entire house and leave the door open while you're doing that. I mean, you can operate the HVAC and do all these things, just
I mean,
needs to be a closed house condition. But again, I found one about a month ago that had 2 passive systems in it, because it had an upper and a lower basement. 2 passive systems in it. The buyers wanted radon testing anyway, it came back elevated. And again, I go back to, they're throwing these pipes in, but they don't have any idea what they're doing. I don't know if there needs to be some kind of educational class that, the installer should be taking, but.
I'll make a note of that, and I'll do some research and I'll get back with you on that.
Okay.
See if it might need some kind of Tennessee requirement or something on
But yeah, it's voodoo science, man. It changes, the levels change
Yeah.
based
well,
on.
it's likely everybody's got radon around here, and it depends on what the weather's been, and as to whether those are gonna be elevated. There's so many-
Albion Downs, the house I sold had elevated radon. I did the inspection on the house next street over, not
No
elevated.
radon, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's hard that's a hard one.
yeah.
that. Flood hazards, I'll tell you what, our department has got a lot of experience when it comes to flood hazards. So we did the flood hazard, mitigation and flood hazard, management for 6 or 7 years before the county hired an engineer, and that was one of the best days of my life when they transferred that over to the county. But there is a little bit in here about flood hazards, and basically the original text, and it's very lengthy, in section R 309.3 of the International Residential Code. We didn't make any changes, we just added to it. And we basically said on the right-hand side, chapter 10 of the Sumner County zoning resolution shall also govern development in a special flood hazard area. And their resolution is very similar to what's in the code, if not verbatim, I'm not sure, but it's very similar. But we just put it in there, just to make sure they'd go look at the zoning resolution about flood hazard areas also. Drainage system. This is one that, I think we was seeing a lot of issues out in the field, so we decided to make a change on it. The original text in section R405.2.3, junk drainage systems and other than group eyesores, was basically sand, something that, drains really good. A sump shall be provided to drain the porous layers and footings. Now, a sump is basically just a hole with a pipe. It's not really a sump pump, but you can put a sump pump in the sump. The sump shall be not less than 24 inches on diameter or 20 inches square. Shall extend not less than 24 inches below the bottom of the basement floor, and they're talking about basement floors here. But in the change, we included also crawl spaces, so keep that in mind. Basement floors, and shall be capable of positive gravity or mechanical drainage to remove any cumulative water. The drainage system shall discharge into an approved sewer system or to daylight. We made amendments, and what we added, this is an addition to the original. We didn't change any word on the original, we just added. It says a crawl space sump system, also known as a positive drain, shall be located at the lower grade of the crawl space area. Discharge piping shall be a minimum of 2 inches inside the mentioned schedule 40 PVC. The discharge piping shall extend to the exterior of the building and beyond until it reaches daylight by gravity flow. If the topography of the property makes a positive flow to daylight unreasonable, then a sump system may discharge into a subsurface rock or sand pit designed using acceptable engineering practices. The subsurface rock or sand pit must be located a minimum of 10 feet from the exterior foundation of the building. The installation of a crawl space sump pump shall be recognized as an acceptable alternative. What it's saying right there is, you look into a crawl space and they're never level hardly. They're always going to be going from high to low. And invariably you're going to find water standing in the low part of it. So what we put as a requirement, you got to have a sump in the lowest part. And then a 2-inch pipe leading to daylight. So if you picture on the outside of the house and the grade is going down from the house, you'll eventually get to daylight. Because you'll come out as the grade is going down. But if not, if the grade is going up and you'll never reach daylight with your pipe, what you can do is dig a pit about 6 by 6, 10 feet away from the house, and put rock and sand in it and dump it off into that where to flow away from the house. We've seen a lot of issues with mold, and I'm sure you have too, Bruce. Mold in the crawl space, and that's what we've come up with as a solution. So,
The block layers have gotten real good at setting that process up, you know, leaving a half a block opening on the bottom corner there so they can run their corrugated pipe through it or whatever. And early on, it was an issue when we started requiring it, but gotta have the block layers understanding it needs that. Instead of
And
just
does
punching
that
it
area
out.
where it reaches daylight, it needs to be right at your neighbor's property line, right?
So you don't necessarily trap that pipe, do you? You just
Oh.
let it free flow.
Yeah. Critters love it.
Terry, talk a little bit about what we see also with vented crawl spaces and non-vented crawl spaces.
Well, vented crawl spaces are getting more and more rare every day. You've got to have a certain amount of square inches of crawl space vents per square foot of crawl space. And most of the time nowadays for a crawl space, they're doing a conditioned crawl space where you've got to, instead of having the insulation under the floor joist, between the floor joists for the R19, they'll foam the perimeter, and they'll tape up their visqueen plastic and tape them together, wrap the piers, tape them up real good, give them conditioned air. They'll open up conditioned air from the trunk line of the HVAC system, and actually turn that crawl space into a room, basically. You've got to have an air exit as well as an air supply, and they've got to match up. That was another big issue with the installers. They didn't understand what was required. Anybody's guess how much air was going in and going out. And we were still finding our way about how to inspect it. But now that was 4 years ago.
So when they do that, they're changing that space into heated and cooled space, which you remember this counts as square footage when you're appraising now.
Strike that.
They've come a
I think I
long
want some
way
more
on
down
this.
here.
These conditioned crawl spaces, they really have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like now compared to 4 years ago,
Oh, they're my favorite.
It's been a lot of trial and error, and to give you one example is that they start off with a minimum 6 mil vapor barrier. Well, they changed that in 2021, now it's a minimum 10 mil. The reason why is you got workers under there working in the crawl space, and you got rock under that 6 mil, where you got eventually gonna have a lot of pinholes everywhere. And then the sun is going to pull that moisture out of the ground through all them pinholes, and that's another reason they were getting mold on their joists. So they changed that to 6 mil this past cycle. Exterior decks, and this is, a lot of this has been things that we've just seen out in the field that we knew that needed to be corrected. And this is nothing right here. R507.10.4, other guards shall be in accordance with either manufacturer's instructions or accepted engineering practices. We're going out there, we used to go out there and see a lot of these horizontal cables, you know, as guards on railing. It might be on second floor deck. And a lot of times we see where they rusted. They don't have any turnbuckles on where you can tighten them up.
Right.
and they were at least 4 inches apart, and when they got loose, you know, you can pull on them and put your foot through it real easy.
Yeah.
So we made some changes on that. It says, by adding, cable guards shall have individual turnbuckles or other tensioning mechanisms for each cable guard, and shall be a maximum of 3 inches apart, but code says 4, we restricted to 3 inches apart. Cable guards shall be stainless steel or vinyl coated. Cable guards shall be able to withstand 200 pounds of vertical load and should be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions or accepted engineering practices.
Now they're ladder hazards for children.
Yeah.
And that's what I can't figure out is they took that out of, I think, 2015. They removed that horizontal, bollards, and I'm going,
Yeah.
you show any 2 or 3-year-old that,
Oh,
they're
it's-
going up, they're
Yeah.
going over it.
It's like a ladder.
Yeah, it's like,
Climb right over it, yeah.
Or steel, square steel, bars going up and down stairways.
Yeah.
I really wish they would limit that to, and we may consider, we get so much pushback from these builders. It'd be nice if that was taken out, like this was changed right here.
Agree.
But Terry, does it say about the pool codes, a guard, a barrier on the pool code
Yeah.
can't be designed where,
It's
like a
more
ladder
restrictive
where
than a
somebody
house.
can
Yeah.
climb over it?
Mhm.
right,
So
but you
I
can put
know
it on
what
the third floor
horizontal,
deck.
you can't have horizontal components on the outside of a fence
Right.
guarding the pool because it would be like a ladder and then somebody climb over it.
Yeah.
But it's okay on a 3rd-story deck with your toddlers up there.
Yeah.
That's okay. As long as you put a lot of rubber mulch down next to the house in the drop zone. It's,
I blame a lot of the stuff people see on TV too, for a lot of this stuff, the shows, that people watch. Well, I saw it on, HGTV.
Yeah.
famous last words.
We saw earlier in part 1 that the electrical was deleted. We were talking commercial. Now we've done the same thing for residential. Support for headers, and this is another one that we saw out in the field that was seeing a lot of failures, that something had to be addressed. Some of the old carpenters was bringing it to our attention that something needs to be done about this because they were seeing a lot of headers and garage openings fail. So we've spent a lot of time and energy and research on this one, and I'm gonna read it, and I'm gonna again let Terry expound on it because he's the one that sees a lot of this out in the field. The original says header shall be supported on each end with 1 or more jack studs and with approved frame and anchors in accordance with table R607. I'm gonna paraphrase the rest of it. It talks about how many jack studs, how many king studs need to be on either side of a garage portal. And we amended it and changed it by adding portal openings for garages shall be framed with a minimum of 2 crippled jack studs with a minimum of 2 full height studs on both sides of the portal opening supporting headers. Each portal opening shall have its own dedicated header. That's important right there. Each portal opening shall have its own dedicated header. So if you got 2 garage portal opens, 3 or 4, whatever, each one has to have their own dedicated header. You can't have a header going from one corner of the garage open all the way to the other corner of the garage open. And we saw that a lot. We saw a lot of failure in it.
Yeah.
Hinge doors that are located on a garage portal opening wall shall also have its own dedicated header. All full height king studs shall run from bottom plate to top plate with all components attached according to the fastening table located in Chapter 6 of the International Residence Code. Walls having garage portal openings shall be constructed using a minimum 2x6 nominal lumber on maximum 16-inch centers exterior walls consisting of garage portal openings and not supporting an additional story or bonus room above may be constructed of a minimum 2x4 nominal lumber on maximum 16 inches, but not exceeding 9 foot in height. Terry?
Yeah, we'd get out there and I don't know how that managed to get through the code book like that, the way we were seeing these headers. Going from corner to corner with a big old LVL header, 26 foot long, holding everything up, And you'd have two garage doors, drive-in garage doors and a door beside it. And even if you had two doors, you would have the one header going all the way across, and they would just go up to the header. And we had instances where the LVL would hinge out right there at the top of the header and buck out in the middle, and it wasn't holding itself up. And all that load with that bonus room and that roof coming down on that header, that LVL is made to hold vertical, and it's just not gonna, if it starts swinging out, you got to have a major repair done on that. And the way this reads, you're gonna have those 2x6 king studs on each side of each header, going all the way up to the plates and stabilizing that wall. That wall is by far the weakest wall in the whole house, every time, no question. And it can be really flimsy if it's done the way they used to have to do it. What we do, when we do our plan review, and I see that that's the situation with that house plan, we printed up a bunch of that slide right there, and that's the very first sheet of paper they see when we issue the permit, and they have to sign it. And since we started doing all that, we don't ever see this situation anymore. It's cured itself. And
So
it was a real problem.
So, I know of a building that has a similar situation, but it has the LVLs on each door, garage doors. It's a 8 and a 16, and then a walk-through. And then on top of that, it's got the I-joist. Do y'all require the squash blocks? Because there's a second floor. So would you require the squash blocks on each side of that I-joist for the second floor?
For the whole run, for the whole I-joist? Oh, no, we don't.
No, just right at where the second floor goes up. So it's all 2x6 wall.
Yeah.
So it's 2x6 walls on the bottom floor. The second floor is 2x4s. But you got I-joists running front to back. Would you want squash blocks on that second floor wall underneath it on the I-joist? Murfreesboro does. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that was.
I've never seen them.
Let's make a note of that, Terry.
Okay, I will.
Right.
Good information coming out of these guys,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the squash block could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you got a 2x4 wall above that 2x6 wall that it's sitting on, you can do it. All you gotta do is scab a 2x4 in there, just a squash block.
Oh, we see it all the time. There's always stress cracks and issues right there at those garage doors.
Oh, yeah, once that, LVL starts to buckle, then it breaks the brick.
And it makes sense. I didn't think about the outward shift that being major.
A lot of times they'll swing out, and the distance between the brick veneer and the header is enough to where it covers it up. You're not gonna catch it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the opening right here on a different issue we were seeing. It's not part of our, PowerPoint. And that, we also found a history of brick cracking in the garage portal, because the lintel failure, is not attached. What they'll do is they'll start bricking up around the garage openings, and then they'll put the lintel in, and then they'll continue bricking on. Well, there's no way we can check it, because you can't just stop and wait on us a day or two, you know, while they bricking and going on up. We can't really, check, brick tiles either, because they're putting brick tiles on as they're going up. The bricklayers, as the building scaffold,
Right.
they're doing them as they're going up. I mean, we can look at them and tell, well, yeah, they're so far apart, or, you know, but as far as going out and doing a brick tile inspection or a brick lintel inspection, it's not practical. But we saw some brick lintel failures because they wasn't being attached. Well, that caused another problem, because you can't attach a brick lintel to an LVL except for one little sweet spot right in the middle of the LVL. It's 1/6 to 1/6, 1/6 horizontal and 1/6 vertical. So you divide it in 6 sections vertical, then divide it in 6 sections horizontal, and that one little center is the only place that you can put a bolt in the LVL without getting an engineer report. Well, some of these contractors figured it out that putting bolts in every 2 foot solved the brick problem from cracking. Putting bolts in every 2 foot on the brick lintel, but it caused another problem. It voided the warranty of the LVL. So, I mean, what do you do? Well, we just kind of, right now at this point, that's about the only thing that we know to do is allow them to put bolts in every 2 inches to tie that brick lintel onto the LVL. It seems to be working right now.
Yeah, when we had this come up, we started talking with the builders and people and saying, you know, we found this instance here, and getting their feedback about what they did. You'll go out there on a framing inspection, the brick lintel is sitting on top of a pallet of brick. You know, they hadn't bricked yet, or it's already in there. You know, they do brick houses while we're doing the framing inspection. And you're not gonna, that's one area you're not gonna catch unless you've got a whole lot of staff to just go out there and look at that.
So if something happens though, where does that liability fall? I mean, because a homeowner is gonna come back to the builder, and the builder's gonna say, no, I'm only guaranteeing this for 1 year or 2 years, whatever they
Correct.
say. And they'll say, well, I'll refer you to the codes, and then y'all come back and say, well, I mean, where does that fall? Where
Oh,
does
the
that-
inspector should have caught that.
Well, that's right. What I'm saying, though.
And then guess what? I get sued as the agent because something was.
Right, right. But anyway, that was just a question when you're kind of talking about that and what can and can't be done.
Well, it's a dilemma. I mean,
Yeah.
we've never told nobody, it's okay to drill into an LVL. We wouldn't dare do that.
Sure.
But if they do it,
I
then,
mean, we're setting precedents here if everybody else is doing it, and
well, nobody has come up with a solution to
Yeah.
satisfy both problems, to satisfy the code and to satisfy the brick failure. Eric, you got any thoughts on that? It's a dilemma.
Yeah,
Get the LVL to change warranty.
I've only seen 2 since I've been with the county, 2
Well.
instances.
yeah.
I know a solution. Put a piece of steel between the 2 LVLs and sandwich it. And then when you drill the LVL, you're not gonna jeopardize the LVL. That wouldn't have to be an engineer say that, but that would stop it. Because then your builder's gonna say, man, that's gonna be an expensive piece of plate steel. And it would be. But that would stop it. It ain't moving then. That would probably
They're
keep
making
your
enough on these houses, they can afford
LVL
a piece of steel.
from racking too.
Yeah.
And I think your garage door openers may be having something to do with racking those. Could be. Because where are they putting that, where are you putting your attachment for your garage door chain or belt or whatever it is above that garage door? Are you going at the top of the LVL or are you going in the middle? Where are you going with it?
Right,
So it could be racking it.
right. Like Terry said, that is the weakest part of the whole house. garage
Put a piece,
door.
but if you put enough steel in it, you'll stop it.
Yeah.
I think just the change we made to the header support has greatly improved the stability of the garage door wall.
Here's an example. I went on a job yesterday, and the cables are loose on the garage door spring. The cables are laying there, not the spring. And I look up, and it's Woody Woodpecker's been up there. They put 1.5-inch lags into that 2x6. And that thing popped, and it bent one of the lags is bent, a 90-degree bend, and the other was laying back at the back of the shop. This thing cut loose.
They will.
And it's just, then how are you gonna know that he used a 3-inch screw?
All right.
There's a 6x6 post behind it, and he had to put the 2x6 on there to get it out where it was flush with everything. And when he did that, he just screwed into the 2x6, and he didn't pre-drill a hole. So when he drilled it, it just split, and it gave way. Yeah, somebody been in there, I just don't tell what it done to him.
Yeah. A lot of tension on it.
So there's
A lot of torque.
So that's your garage door.
Drip edge, this is another interesting.
This came up in one of our first meetings, didn't
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about it. I think if we can persevere to slide 31, then maybe we'll cut it off and let Terry talk a little bit about that facility tax. But it's up to you, Chairman, whatever you want to do. But
That sounds good, let's, keep rolling.
all right. Drip edge, original text. Says drip edge shall be provided at eaves and rake edges of a shingle roof. Rake edge, most of y'all probably know that's the gable part of the roof. Adjacent segments of drip edge shall be overlapped not less than 2 inches. Drip edges shall extend not less than 1/4 inch below the roof sheeting and extend up back onto the roof deck not less than 2 inches. That 2 inches is what I want y'all to pay attention to. Drip edges shall be mechanically fastened to the roof deck and not more than 12 inches on center with fasteners as specified in section R905.2.5. Underlayment shall be installed over drip edges along eaves and under the drip edge along the rake edges. The change. We added aluminum and other fascia materials having a built-in drip edge shall not be recognized as an acceptable alternative to drip edge requirements that are found in section R905.2.8.5. What we saw a lot is that the aluminum fascias that they put on fascia boards, I think we did talk about this, didn't we? They'll break them where they got a little beak on them at the top. They call that a drip edge, but it's not meeting code. And a certain neighborhood, I think, in another jurisdiction, had a lawsuit against their local building codes department because they weren't catching this and they were allowing it. But because it wasn't going 2 inches back up the rake or back up the eave, it was just basically a piece of sheet metal that was had a break on it, about a 5/8 break. They call that a drip edge, and coming on down and tucking underneath the 1x6. And it wasn't going back up the eave, and they were concerned that the water was going to come off the eave and go between the edge of the plywood and the fascia board, and it probably was. It was probably rotten, and when they got it,
Good reason.
yeah, when they got up there and they saw the rot and realized it didn't have a drip edge on it, then that jurisdiction got in trouble. So we started scrambling, trying to, cut it off at the path here in Sumner County, and that's what we come up with. Is that, let's see, exception, aluminum or other fascia materials having a built-in drip edge shall be recognized as an acceptable alternative to drip edge requirements in R905.2.8.5 when tested and approved by independent testing agency. In other words, if the testing agency wants to say that aluminum fascia with a little break-in and is good enough, then they can take on that responsibility, but we're not. We're still saying that's not good enough. You gotta put a drip edge on it that goes 2 inches up the rate. And so a lot of houses now don't have drip edges on it. Not, that would satisfy the code requirements.
Well, another piece of that is 90% of the houses we see, the roofer's in such a doggone hurry, they're not installing it properly. They're running the underlayment right under the doggone drip edge over and over and over. Carrollton has been really good to us for builder's warranty inspections because we've done entire streets where the roof is wrong.
Yeah.
All the way
Done
around.
for me over there.
They've shorted flashing, I mean, just all kinds of
Well, the other thing,
lazy crap. And it's like, did you guys not get the memo? I know this. Here's a picture. You know?
Along the same lines, and I don't know what y'all's requirement here is on this flashing, but when it meets mortar, there's silicone and that stuff in there, and silicone's gonna break down 4 or 5 years, water's gonna run down behind it. It's supposed to be cut in to the mortar. But I'm seeing this on all this new construction, they're not cutting that stuff in, they go up there with some silicone, slap it on there, 4 or 5 years, it's broke down, and people are getting moisture penetration.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if y'all are, if that's something that y'all got a policy on that.
Well, we look for it, but, you know, we're kinda like the policeman, we'll catch a speeder.
Oh, well, we could probably show you 1,000 of them around here easy. Then, but
When you see a problem like in other jurisdictions, and you see that you got a problem here, who's the one that does the changes, or how soon do you make the change, or?
Once we realized that there needed to be a course correction, and that's what we did. We basically waited until it was time to adopt the codes, and we put the language in here for the new codes that were adopted. We're- Ice barriers, we get this phone call a lot. Does the county require ice barriers, water shields? And the answer is yes. In areas where there has been a history of ice forming along the east causing a backup of water as designated table R 301.2, an ice barrier shall be installed, if there's a history of it. So our department needs to got to determine if there's a history of ice forming along the edges of roofs, and there has been empirical evidence that ice does form right here. And what the reason we require is because you know, condition crawl space. You know, I wish they had a chalkboard or something, but when your eaves go past the condition wall, your exterior wall, and there's a hard freeze, that ice will form from the gutter. It may go up 6, 7, 10 feet up the roof, but when it starts to melt, it's going to start to melt up the roof, and it's going to melt down to the point where it gets to the exterior wall, because that's heated. But once you get past that heated part of the exterior wall, it may stay frozen for several more days. So all that water gets a ice dam right there at your exterior wall, and it backs up. And I'm sure you see that's a lot, Bruce. The water will back up and go down the interior of the exterior wall, and that's due to the ice dam. So what they're saying, the ice barrier has to go, it's an underlayment from your roof shingles that's got to go past that exterior wall up the roof to at least 3 foot. And that the intent is that to avoid the ice barrier. Got anything on it there?
No, it's, I'd say about the only way you're gonna catch, if that was done properly, is if you're just going through a neighborhood and catching the roofers.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm sitting here going,
And
how
that's-
do you
that's
identify
valuable.
like
that?
me, you
That's
can have an
vague.
ice dam develop and end up losing
Yeah.
an interior seal and everything to
Because
it.
we're not gonna go, we can't go out there just for that. But if they're building if they're getting ready to roof a house, 3 houses down, you can pretty much get an idea of what they're doing, you know.
I roll kind of slow past some of those places just to see what they're up to.
Right, yeah.
So
Valuable.
does that ice and water, does it come in a 4 foot, or is it a 2 foot? It's a 2 foot road,
It's,
so you'd
yeah,
have to have two.
Talk about freezing, we changed to 12 inch frost depth to 18 inches on, water lines, because that's what, the local utilities require, 18 inches on water lines around here. Even though the frost depth is 12 inches, and your footage only have to go 12 inches below undisturbed soil. And it says that, the water lines only need to go 12 inches. Because the water utilities around there say 18 inches, we changed it to 18 inches.
So I'm seeing it in crawl spaces here.
It was always 12 inches before?
Yes,
I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Not very
amendment
much, is it?
No.
says, you know, a water pipe shall not be installed outside of a building, dug, exterior walls, in attics or crawl spaces. And that's gonna be current,
What slide is that?
the one we just came off of.
I need to go back one?
Yeah,
Let's
the
see what it
change
says.
on that on the right-hand side.
Okay, the change in localities having a winter design temperature of 32 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, as shown in table R 301.2 of this code, a water, soil, or wastewater pipe shall not be installed outside of a building in exterior walls, in attics or crawl spaces, or in any other place subject to freezing temperatures unless adequate provisions is made to protect it from the freezing by insulation or heat or both. Water service pipes shall be installed not less than 18 inches deep and not be less than 6 inches below the frost line.
So the way I read that is unless it's an encapsulated crawl, you can't just throw PEX in there and say it's all good. Is that how I'm reading this? 'Cause
Yeah.
It'd have to be insulated.
That's what I'm reading.
They're gonna
too. It's
wrap
gotta
the
be
pipes, and I
insulated.
don't see anybody wrapping pipes these days. I just see PEX underneath.
Anything in an attic or in an exterior wall's gotta be wrapped for the rough end plumbing.
right.
I have to
So
go back
the
and
issue's
review
just
it.
a
I
crawl
just
space.
got back from town and looked at it.
I'm just asking the question.
Terry, make a note of that one too.
We're gonna get you guys trained up and you're ready for this, that's great.
All right. I think we're getting close here to where we'll be a good stopping point.
Yeah.
Let's see, required. Yeah, this is P 2801.6 that we're going into plumbing. There's several things about plumbing, so if it's okay with Chairman, we'll stop it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right,
Made it.
now we're gonna move on to our discussion about adequate facilities tax.
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to you.
Well, as everybody's aware, this is a requirement by the county. Whenever a permit application is handed out, we hand out one of these sheets right here for them to fill out the top part and call out the square footage and all the information that needs to match up with the building permit application. Once we get that turned back in, we review the plan to make sure it all matches up. And if it's residential, we'll charge 70 cents a square foot, industrial / commercial, 40 cents. Included in this impact, or the adequate facilities tax, is heated and cooled living space and unfinished basements and unfinished bonus rooms. They've got to pay that impact up front, even though they're not gonna condition those areas, because in all likelihood, at some point, they're gonna go in and do that. So we get that up front. The only time we don't get the impact is attached garages, porches, and conditioned crawl spaces and stuff like that. We don't collect on that. Anything unconditioned, we get the permit fee, but we don't get the impact fee.
And also, if there was a natural disaster with a house burned or something, they want to rebuild, and they would be exempt from there.
Yeah.
Any act of God.
There's kind of a little loophole too that I've noticed and we allow, is if somebody does a big, huge room addition and there was a portion of an impact paid at some point, like when the house was built,
It's just gonna happen, yeah.
we can't collect that.
Okay. So, but we have no ability to go where we've missed out on this adequate facility on an industrial or commercial. We have no ability to go back and claw anything back. Is that correct, Mr. Legal Counsel?
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, that going forward, out of curiosity, since we've worked on this and we discovered that we were not collecting where we should be collecting, I'm just curious, how much of an uptick in collection of commercial adequate facilities taxes have we seen? What kind of a burden is this putting on y'all's office? And are y'all looking at doing things to be able to streamline that process and keep it such as an employee or whatever you need to do?
It's gonna be significant.
Yeah, we've planned for it and we've submitted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. And two other things on here, Mr. Chairman, that if you look where it says parcel information, it shows Sumner County, Millersville, Mitchellville, Westmoreland, Hendersonville, and Gallatin. Well, we can go ahead and put the other two municipalities on there too, Portland, and starting May the 1st, we're gonna be collecting for Goodlettsville. They're the last holdout. So the county will be collecting countywide for all the municipalities along with Sumner County, and also the definition is really broadened is what is required to be paid now.
Yeah, so the workload's tripled out of this, which is good, so our collection rates should be way up, which alleviates pressure on property taxes, so that's a good thing.
It's been noticeably more.
Good. I mean, hate that we messed it up to this point, but we can't put milk back in the cow.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I've just got a couple questions about this form. The office use only, who's filling that out? Is it the municipality or is it county?
Down here,
Yeah.
we do, the office staff.
So the signatures required there are gonna be county official, or county officials, yeah?
When I do the plan review,
Uh-huh.
I'll make sure the square footage is, it's a collection of people, really. I'll fill in the square footage, the total tax due, signature, and designate what district it's in.
Okay.
And then,
Does this
When
form
they-
get filled out at any of the municipalities and forwarded to you?
Well, they just recently
we
changed it.
We fill out, no matter where it comes from, we do the bottom.
Okay, but what I'm saying is does anybody start this process other than the county? That, for example.
Yes, yes.
Millersville, do they fill out the first two parts and forward it to you?
They'll bring it in with the house plan,
Okay,
and then we review it, and when it's done, they'll call them and come pay for it.
and as far as the exempt block you've got here, give me an example of what something like that would be. Just the garage and open porches part of this, or?
Act of God rebuild, or?
Oh, yeah, you got that.
The 6 things they call out in the private act, the 6 things, if it meets one of them 6 things, they would get an exemption.
Okay.
Yes.
My only suggestion would be, if you're gonna check it as exempt, just to cover yourself, you might wanna put why.
You know, on May 1st, we're gonna redo this whole thing, because we gotta add Portland and Goodlettsville, so we can do that when we do that.
And if you are gonna change it, I'd also recommend labeling the 70 and 40 cents. I know it's running with the residential and industrial, you're saying the same thing over here, but I delineate that again
Mhm.
so that when they're reviewing it, everybody understands what rate they were getting taxed at.
Okay. Maybe move the 70 cents over to residential.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
And
But
then
it's whatever, it's your form, so I don't want to interfere with what
Yeah.
works better for you.
we were actually gonna get together and scribble on this thing and, get it right at one time. Anything else stick out to you?
No.
Let's see, once they, come in and pay for it, Terry, they'll take that receipt and go to the jurisdiction that they're building in, and
That's when they
they
can start.
shouldn't issue a permit unless they have that receipt in hand.
Yeah.
Stop.
They can't start the permit process in a city before this is done.
It's gonna make it a little, so much better for everybody to come to one spot instead of Portland and Gillisville sending it directly to the finance department, us not knowing anything about it. Have it all in one place. That it, Terry, that's all you got?
That's about it.
Todd, you got anything you wanna share?
No, sir.
All right, we have no new business. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? I got a second?
Last in, first
All those in favor? The horn blew right on time.
Yeah. Thanks,
Wanna hit the
fellas.
button on now?
Red button, huh?
I have no idea.
Eric, have a good night.
No idea. Yeah, I feel like good information came out of this today, man. Y'all was killing it. Doing a great job. Good to see you, man.
See you later.
I'm glad.